Buchholz Plant Introductions, Part 3. We'll continue with the Buchholz Plant Introduction series, but where I'm quick to admit that half or more of my selections have proven to be useless, redundant, or ill-advised. I don't intend to come across as overly humble, or cowardly even. But if you examine the record, you'll likely conclude that Buchholz indeed got carried away with the naming and introducing frenzy. In the last Flora Wonder blog, Buchholz Plant Introductions Part 2, I teased with a photo of Acer stul-aium, Joseph's coat, but I didn't explain his story, its history. The species itself is seldom encountered in horticulture, but one year that I found it available for purchase was at Heritage Seedlings, Oregon, USA, under the listing of Acer stul-aium subspecies franchedi. That was 20 years ago, and the seedling supplier has never offered it since, and I suspect the company discontinued because nobody would buy it. One or some are apparently growing at the Rhododendron Species Botanic Garden in Washington State. But even though I have visited a couple dozen times, I don't recall encountering any. Nevertheless, I borrow garden director Steve Hootman's description: a rarely offered species of maple that forms a medium growing to large tree with deciduous leaves that are somewhat bulate and with the toothed margins. The leaves are primarily three-lobed, but with two small lobes at the base as well. Yellow fall foliage color. One of my favorite maples and very distinct in foliage, native to the forests in the Sino-Himalayan region, grown from seed collected from my collection in 1995. One hurdle with its commercial popularity is the problematic specific epithet. Look for just an instant at the name stul-aium, then close your eyes and try to recall it. Not so easy. Not like palmatum or japonicum, for example. I'll admit that the 50 or so Acer stul-aium seedlings took the better part of 5 years to sell, but only much later could I even pronounce it myself. Like some other words for me, I can see it in the written form, but that doesn't guarantee that I can express it. My simple brain just skips that part, I guess, as unnecessarily complicated. It was maple expert and author Peter Gregory who helped me through it when he explained the species name was coined for the Roman god of smell, sterquilinus, besides the maple whose flowers are malodorous. Sterculia is a genus named by Linnaeus in the mallow family, and the Sterculia fotida is commonly known as the tropical chestnut. A gum is extracted from the Sterculia and is used as a laxative and as a denture adhesive, thus double tasking at the retirement home. The god of fertilizer or manure, a pseudonym of Saturn, who supervised the manuring of the fields and was god of the privy, from stercus for excrement. De Beaulieu, an illustrated guide to maples, describes Acer stul-aium. Known in Europe for decades, it is a collector's tree with no particular ornamental value. The subspecies, franchedi, was described by Ferdinand Pax and named after French botanist Adrien Franchot, 1834 to 1900. And this group, from central China and Tibet, was introduced by E.H. Wilson in 1901 on his first Chinese expedition working for the English Veitch nursery firm. De Beaulieu described the subspecies as an attractive medium-sized tree, but rare in Europe. Encouragingly, he claims it is hardy to the USDA Zone 5. Out of my 50 subspecies franchedi seedlings, one displayed wonderfully variegated leaves in unique patterns for each leaf. I was initially excited at the prospect of promoting a rare species via a variegated form, but alas, my Joseph's coat was not stable. The few propagules that I produced were sold off for what they were worth, not much, but I have no idea how they fare at this time. The original tree is in a container at the south end of the box area with all leaves now totally green. It is loaded with seed, but what good would they do for me if they germinated? Another failed Buchholz introduction is Acer palmatum rainbow, because it too features variegated leaves, but for me they're not stable. The original seedling is planted at Flora farm where it grows broad and dense with purple red leaves. It was selected when young for splashes of pink and cream white, but now one must search diligently to find any variegated portions. Containers in our greenhouses are overly lush with our water and fertilizer regimen, and they regularly revert. Although I've seen rainbow in other nurseries which came from me, and where the care is obviously more Spartan, the tree remains vibrantly colorful. I don't know if anyone is producing rainbow, but I haven't propagated any for the past 3 years. I partly gave up on it because we have increased production on Acer palmatum Lillian's Jewel, which has proven more stable in our growing conditions. But rainbow at its best definitely outshines Lillian's Jewel, so it's particularly sad for me that it didn't behave. Cornus alterfinolia, Moonlight, originated as a seedling in a batch of purchased rootstocks in about 2005. At the same time we were propagating Cornus alternifolia argentea, the variegated pagoda dogwood from eastern North America, and my discovery seemed about the same at a young age. Both are relatively weak shrubs, often with awkward shapes, but the argentea is nevertheless in high demand, at least with my customers. But after a few years of watching the seedling that would be named Moonlight, I noticed that its variegated portions would evolve from cream white to rosy plum red after significant heat occurs in July. Argentea will present some pinkish coloration as well, but Moonlight is definitely more noticeable. I have sold a small number in the past, but due to the usual lack of Cornus alternifolia rootstock, combined with Moonlight's lack of vigorous scionwood, we haven't produced any in the past 5 or 6 years. When I decided to discontinue it, I sold off all my container plants except for one that sprawls in greenhouse 23. Ditto the same fate for Cornus alternifolia saya, a seedling selected at about the same time as Moonlight. Except Saya's demise was due to its propensity to revert. I love to photograph the colorful portions of Saya, and there's already 18 images of it on our website. Saya is the name of my youngest daughter, which in Japanese can have various meanings depending on the characters, but my daughter's characters translate to a beautiful field of flowers, as in Cornus alternifolia, Moonlight. My heart tells me I should give up on these 2 dogwoods, but the capitalist side of me says to stop wasting time and energy. My experience with them is like a brief dream where the apparitions floated into, then out of my consciousness. The common denominator with the aforementioned plants is one of failure. They are rare in plant collections, if indeed they exist at all. It must be accepted and expected that the nurseryman will strike out far more often than hitting a home run. However, I was able to smash a homer with Cornus cusa Summer Fun, a variegated oriental dogwood that can grow in full sun, and which for me has never reverted. About 1998, I noticed a single branch mutation on a 3-year-old green seedling rootstock. I potted it up and reduced the green portion so energy would go to the variegated branch, while retaining enough green to nurse the abnormal shoot. A few years later, I propagated what was to become Summer Fun, and as I've said before, it works best for me to have a final name in place, instead of a code name or number. Over the years, I continued to propagate and eventually cut the green part entirely. No more coddling then. You're on your own, so let's see if you prosper, or will you shrivel up and burn? Thousands of grafts later, Cornus cusa Summer Fun has proven its worth, and it's now firmly established as one of the best variegated trees ever. I was especially impressed with field-grown trees at Flora Farm, growing in full sun, for they withstood our 3-day heat dome when the temperatures soared to 116 degrees Fahrenheit, 47 degrees Celsius. That hellacious event occurred at the end of June 2021, when the leaves were still spring fresh, but there was only a slight burn to some leaf edges. The original summer fun was planted in the garden where it was visible from my office chair, and it was one of the untouchables at Buchholz Nursery. It was never for sale, nor would I ever part with it unless someone bought the entire nursery. Besides, how could I ever put a price on the original tree that has been so important in my career? Definitely not for sale. Never. But then one day I received a message from J.H., who was and still is employed by Michael Steinhardt, the owner of Iroki Garden in New York State. Mr. Steinhardt was turning 80, and could I provide the best tree ever as a birthday present? I had been supplying trees to the Iroki for a number of years, and the Arboretum/Zoo currently houses 100 or more Buchholz grown trees, including some of the originals of the Maple Ghost series, such as the fantastic Acer palmatum, Amber Ghost. I reasoned at the time that I was getting old, and since I couldn't take any maples to heaven with me, the treasures were better safe at the endowed Iroki Garden than on my property that might one day become a box store parking lot. I have visited Iroki once with my family in October of 2016, and it's a very special place, seemingly designed to entertain children, or at least a child in Mr. Steinhardt himself. But anyway, what tree would be a worthy gift? The original summer fun was off limits, absolutely not for sale. But I vowed to never sell it, but could I give it away? How simple, how perfect. So that's what I did. And I hope that one day I can return to Iroki to reunite with summer fun and my other old friends. If you are a specialty nursery or boutique garden center wanting the rare and exceptional plants your customers love, register as a wholesale customer on buchholznursery.com today.